Explosives on.
That was a missed grenade. I got that one. I'm gonna get these drones. Got it.
Come on.
Alright.
Back
Once you
next
break
way.
them, get them, head over here.
Very good. We're coming.
Are you almost
Come on,
ready?
Inigo.
3,
Yeah, good,
2, 1, go. Woo! We did it! What is up, everybody? I wanted to share with you a new build that I've been working on and finally got it to basically really, really good. It is working real good, and it is a TAC-50 build. This is for only one purpose, and this is over-damaging Razorback in the final fight of the raid. Our group was actually able to successfully one-phase him, and we weren't even using versions of the build that were as good as this one. This was a few days ago when we were able to do it, and I'll link it at the end of the video, the clip of us one-phasing Razorback. It was pretty impressive, and I got really happy about it, and it caused me to even further optimize this build, and now it does a lot more damage. So keep in mind, this is not a marksman rifle build. This is not a build that you would want to use for anything other than trying to overdamage or bleed, whatever you want to call it, Razorback. And by overdamage, what I mean is that normally you can only do 1/4 of his health per phase. But if you time it right, you can synchronize shots with multiple people or even just by yourself and do more than 1/4 of his health and potentially do all of his health in one shot. I believe there was 4 or 5 of us that successfully synced our shots together, and it actually caused Razorback to die. But I'm going to show you the build. So I do use a Nemesis rifle, even though this is not a marksman rifle build. You don't need to use Nemesis. Some people don't like Nemesis, and they like to use the Eagle Bearer or whatever your gun of choice is. You will need to occasionally kill enemies. You're still going to be, waiting for those circles to charge up, and in the meantime, you want to kill those enemies. I'm able to one-shot them with the Nemesis still, as long as I've got either aces up or my on the ropes up, so that's pretty cool. And then I have a P416 in case I need to kill drones or something. Normally I don't need to, but just in case, I do use a P416, and it has strained and extra. This build does have quite a bit of crit chance. I'll go over that. So strained is a pretty decent talent for that. And then I have a pistol that I don't use. I just have it for a protected reload. Most important things here. I'm going to show you all the stats and attributes. There's not much choice for change in this build. It's very specific, and it doesn't really give you many options. I will let you know the options you can take prior to having a maxed out version, particularly the chest. But one of the most important pieces, and also very hard to get, is a Sokolov mask with 2 yellows and a red with spotter on it. Spotter is extremely important, and this is the only mask that can get you 2 yellows and a red. I mean, you can get 2 yellows on a Heliguard mask, but it always rolls blue, so you're not going to have the red. So potentially you could get away with a Hela mask if you don't have this with a 1 red, 1 blue, 1 yellow mod slot, but you're going to need to make up for the yellow elsewhere, which will, hurt your damage elsewhere. But it's more important to have spotter than an extra red mod somewhere. So this is very, very useful. I can still roll this to 45, but I don't have a spare mask to do it. That's a major room for improvement that I can do on this build, and potentially get a better version that'll let me roll it up to 50 or more, even though I don't have one that's 50. Highest I have is 47, but I'm not putting it on that mask right now. Next is your backpack. Very, very important. You need to have on the ropes and hard hitting. Damage to elites is extremely important in this build. You want to have as much as you can because the boss is considered an elite, so it's a very, very important stat to have. On the ropes is not as important because weapon damage actually only gives you about 20%, I believe, 20 or 25% towards the TAC-50. So this is really only giving, someone told me about 6%, 6.7%, something like that. 6 point something percent damage to your TAC-50 shot, but it is quite a bit. It's a nice amount, and the other option would be to only have 5 yellows on this build and forego having on the ropes, and that would allow you to gain an extra red mod slot, which I might do in the future. I'm not sure. We're going to do more tests and find out exactly how much damage on the ropes adds and how much damage an extra red mod slot has. I'm going to go into the red mod slots at the end of going through all my loot and let you know something that we found out yesterday when testing. And the other thing about this chest or backpack is you want to have 2 yellows with the yellow mod slot. 3 yellows total with this version if you're doing on the ropes. If you're not doing on the ropes, you can get away with 2 reds here, and you could do crit chance, crit damage. So that's also something to look out for, something like this, where you've got the chance, roll the damage real high, or vice versa. Now, this is a wyvern piece. It's important to have 3-piece wyverns with this build, because crit chance and crit damage scales very well with the TAC-50. So my stats altogether on the TAC-50, let's see here. We are sitting at 56.5 crit chance, 52 crit damage, and 90% damage to elites. When I get a better mask, this will be 95% damage to elites, so that's pretty sweet. And we've also got 8% damage to health, 1% damage to armor. I don't have the greatest mods, but the most important thing on your mods is damage to health. Nothing else is more prioritized than damage to health. Marksman rifle does nothing. Keep that in mind. Now, as far as the chest goes, this is a very good chest. Best in slot chest here. This is a 511. It's got 2 red mod slots, 2 reds on it with a yellow, and hard hitting. Fairly difficult to get, but not impossible. This one rolled pretty nicely, too. I can get a little bit more crit damage on it. It's got 7.5 crit chance, 20.5 crit damage, the yellow, and the 2 red mod slots that let me put damage to health. And as you can see, even though this is an assault rifle mod, it's one of my only mods with 2% damage to health, so prioritize that. Preferably best in slot mods would be 2 to health, 2 to armor, and 2 to weapon damage. But good luck. I've never seen one. However, people like, Solid have like 4 or 5 of those things. I don't know how he did that, but yeah, it happens. So that's this chest. Really nice chest. Gloves. If you are running the on the ropes version, you're going to want a yellow on these gloves because you need that extra yellow. If you're running a 5 yellow version with just spotter, you can get away with crit chance on these gloves. Marksman rifle does nothing. So the only other option than a yellow would be a red that has crit chance. I do have a pair. Where are they? Right here. I've got a pair if I ever do change it up. 6.5 crit chance with hard hitting. But these are the ones that I use for this on the ropes version. Red mod slot with damage to health. And if you do have marksman rifle damage ones, might as well put them in because you might be using your nemesis to shoot ads. But it's not a big deal. As far as your holster goes, wyvern to help with that 3-piece. Depending on your crit chance, crit damage ratios on your backpack and your chest piece and potentially your gloves, you can either roll this to crit chance or crit damage. Now, if I had the 5 yellow version with no on the ropes, I could have more crit damage or crit chance on my backpack, more crit chance on the gloves, and then maybe I'd be able to roll this to crit damage. Preferably, this would be crit damage because you can get a huge number, 16 crit damage on here, and that's a lot of extra damage. But you would need some very high crit chance rolls on your chest or backpack or gloves or whatever combination you have. But this is pretty simple, easy to find wyvern holster. 16 crit chance might not be as easy to find, but hard hitting with the red mod slot. And for some reason, this does not have the right mod in it, and I'm not sure why. Willis Gaming build. Strange. My mod did not save. So this whole time I've had the wrong mod. I'm glad I noticed that during the video. It's probably in my other wyvern holster. There it is right there. 2% damage to health. That is supposed to be in there. This is in my yellow holster, and I'm not sure why it's not in there. But hey, that's good to know. So I actually have 10% damage to health in my stats, not 8%. So that is good news. I don't know why, but now we know. I will fix that, not during this video, but afterwards. And final piece, wyvern knee pads. These are 6 crit chance, I think that's as high as you can really get on knee pads. I'm not sure. Maybe you could get higher. I've never found higher than 9, so try to get as high as you can. 420 YOLO. Hard hitting, damage to elites here, and a red mod slot. Again, damage to health. This one also has damage to armor. This is probably my best mod here. 2% to health, 1% to armor, 1% weapon. So there you have it. Obviously, you run sharpshooter because this is a TAC-50 build. Without it, this build is completely shit. Talents. I run pulse and chem launcher. You can either run a regular pulse to help, see where the enemies are and get some damage with your spotter, but preferably you're going to have a tip of the spear guy, obviously, on your group, and they're going to be pulsing things, so it's not that big of a deal if the ads aren't pulsed. So I run a jammer pulse myself, and I have it equipped with a radius mod, and it helps get those pesky drones off your ass if they aren't, already dead from other people's. One thing you don't want to have to do is waste your what's it called? Your aces and eights shots or TAC-50 shots on a drone. And I've had to do it a couple of times. It's like, I'm going to die, so I need to shoot this drone with my TAC-50 right now, use an ammo and use my aces. But it's better than nothing. So that's what I've got on there. As well as chem launcher. I don't use the chem launcher for the heal itself. I use it so that it's on cooldown for a long time and the potential to heal. It's got 8 charges on it. So in the beginning of the fight, usually I'll just spam all 8 real quick. They don't stack, but you can dump them really quickly. And that'll help your cooldowns. You can spam it, and as you can see, now I've got 8 of them. So I've got like 80 seconds. Even though it's on a fast cooldown, I've got 80 seconds of skill 1 being on my cooldown. Some people like to have fast cooldowns with this build, but I actually prefer longer cooldowns so that you don't have to reapply it and lose your on the ropes. So it's up to you how you spec that. But overall, I think that's everything. I'm gonna just switch this mod out before I forget. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. I can't really show you guys the damage numbers of this build because the shooting range doesn't show them, but we did find out how to test real damage numbers. Because when you shoot Razorback, it actually shows immune. But what you can do is never shoot a bullet at anything, and then shoot Razorback, and then wipe. And you can actually see how much damage you did to Razorback. So that actually works pretty well if you're trying to test different builds and see what does more damage rather than just using your eyes to, gauge how much damage it's doing or whatever. So if you are ever testing and wondering how much damage your build does, when you shoot Razorback, it's going to show red immune. What we did do is we found out that damage to health is a lot more important than we thought. 2%, we had someone yesterday test with 8% damage to health on Razorback. It was actually causing him to do 24% more damage, and we don't know why. We were testing in the easy mode raid. We're going to test again in the harder mode raid, the normal raid, and see if there's any other changes. But yesterday's test confirmed that 8% damage to health was actually increasing his overall damage in one shot by 24%. So if the ratios of percentage increases are the same across both difficulties, damage to health is unbelievably important. And that would mean that with what I have now, 5 red mods, I'd be doing 30% extra damage. We also tested damage to armor. We've heard conflicting stories whether damage to armor affects Razorback or not. We confirmed yesterday it 100% does not affect Razorback at all. It does affect his weak points, the 2 that pop up that you got to break before you shoot his health or meat or flesh, whatever you want to call it. But damage to health does not affect those. Damage to armor does. And damage to armor does not affect Razorback's health. Only damage to health does. So that is really good news. If you're interested in min-maxing this build, keep that in mind. That said, I am going to look into how much more damage I gain by adding one extra red mod slot here and losing on the ropes. It might be better. If I can lose on the ropes, gain an extra red mod slot on this build, and that 2%, you know, turns into 6% damage, the on the ropes is also apparently only 6% damage. So we're going to do some more testing and find out. If it is, I'd rather just go with the extra red mod slot and never have to worry about on the ropes being up or whatever. And that would also allow me to add an extra crit chance on my gloves. So if that was the case, we'd go red here with crit chance. Then we would go red mod slot here, which you can't do with Wyvern. So the only way you could do that is if you were able to make up the crit chance. I mean, I can make up 6.5 of it with my gloves. So we're only missing, 3.5 crit chance now from the bonus of Wyvern. So it is possible. You might be able to pull it off without having, the 3-piece Wyvern and using a red mod slot here with 511. But more testing needs to be done, and I will be doing that. So this is so far my final form of this build until further notice. So use this as a good template and guide to, trying a one-phase Razorback. So I'll see you guys around. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other builds that I used during the raid. I even got a PvP build up. And you can always check me out live, Twitch TV /Inigo Montoya. Thanks for watching, guys.